guys, NS Productions 8104 here today. Today we're doing a little bit of a different video. I'm actually going to show you how I maintain all of my high-end locomotives, and we'll be doing two here. This is the Scaletrains Rivet Counter SD40-2 Admiral cab, and the next thing we're going to do is one of their GE models, so that way you can see how I maintain both my E&D and General Electric models by Scaletrains. So let's get to it. First things first, we're going to turn the thing over, and we're gonna take out the coupler boxes here so we can remove the shell. Anytime I do maintenance on my locomotives, I remove the shell as much as possible, so that way I don't damage any of the details on said shell. So okay, so the screws are not coming out very easily. Come here. Sometimes these screws are a little stubborn to get out. They're supposed to be magnetic, but they're a bit of a pain in the butt. No. Not supposed to drop the screwdriver, but anyway. Okay. Alright, there's the one screw. And then here's the other screw. The next thing we want to do is remove the coupler boxes themselves with the couplers. I have replaced my standard Scaletrains heads on this one with some KD whisker couplers. They have the number 5 heads. I cannot remember the number of these KDs, but if you want, just literally go on any popular online retailer and look for, go to their couplers and look for whisker couplers with the 5 heads. So if you've never done this before, to remove the shell on a Scaletrains locomotive, it's pretty simple. Remove the coupler boxes, pull straight up, but please be careful because a lot of them have sanding lines like this one does. This SD40-2 is got those sanding lines, which you can see right there. We'll just set this off to the side, and then now you got your frame. So this is what a typical SD40-2 frame looks like. This is either from the second or third run. I cannot remember which run this locomotive is from, but anyway. So today's plan is that I've had this engine for several years, so we need to get in and remove the trucks, clean the trucks out, and put brand new oil and grease into the trucks, so that way we know this engine's got lots more years of running left to do. Like I said, this engine I've had for a long time. In fact, I can actually pull up when I purchased this said locomotive. I want to say I purchased it in 2020, end of 2020 or 2021. I'm doing this at my computer desk, so I have access to my account from Scaletrains.com. Let's see. $100. What was that? Okay. So yeah, I want to say this was a 20. I purchased this in 2021. October of 2021. So I've had this engine for well over 4 years. So and I've never done any maintenance on it in terms of replacing oil and everything. So it definitely needs it at this point in time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to flip this thing up. And as you can see, there's a little bit of tape here. Now, keep in mind, I would recommend doing this kind of process if the engine is no longer in warranty, because if it's still in warranty, I would not recommend doing this, just because you then will void the said warranty and just keep the warranty, and then once the engine comes out of the warranty, and if you got to do anything to it, that's when I would recommend doing something like this. But if you're having issues with your Scaletrains engines, I would highly recommend you just contact Scaletrains, and they'll fix it up for you, which is, like I said, it's something I would recommend. I've had only one problem with one of my engines that I couldn't fix, which was the Dash 9 we'll be working on here in a couple minutes. And that said engine had a main motherboard failure, which needed a whole new motherboard and everything else. And they said, send it in for warranty repairs. We won't charge you because it was under warranty at the time. And that was when they had their 2-year warranty. But anyway. So, in order to access the trucks on a Scaletrains locomotive, you got to remove the main chassis weight here. There's a screw here and here. So go ahead and remove those. And if anyone's wondering, this is the ESU foam cradle holder. I wanted this one over any other one just because it has a built-in magnetic strip in the top. I went to a smaller screwdriver head to get in here because I couldn't get it in here with the bigger screwdriver. But, alright. Okay, so now the chassis weight is now free from the frame. But now we got to be extremely careful because you got truck wires going through here. So on these older Scaletrains boards, your truck wires are located in the corners here and here. So I'm going to go ahead and get my soldering iron hot. We'll unsolder those and then we'll cut right back to how do you remove the trucks from this along with the wire. So let me get that done real quick and we'll come right back. Alright, so I went ahead and got those wires removed. So we're going to now unsolder. So now we're going to carefully figure out where they thread. Alright, so they go down this way. So the way they have this set up is NMRA standard. So you got your red wire here, which is picking up from the conductor side. Your black wire picks up from the right rail or your engineer side. So remember that. Red left, black right. Because the way it goes is it's based off of the front of the locomotive. This is the front. So red's on the left, black is on the white. Black is on the right, not white. But, right. So now what you're going to have to carefully do is I'll have to remove more of this tape. I'm going to replace this tape when I'm done too because it's old tape. Right, there's the PCB light board for the ditch lights. This is definitely one of their older runs because now I'm pretty sure nowadays they do what they do in their Dash 9s and their GEs. They have the pins and they're mounted. There's a little circuit board mounted right underneath the underneath the front pilot there. Right, so okay, we'll remove those. So now, yep, okay, so it's a little bit more free. But now, as you can see the little red wire here. So go ahead and gently pull on this. It's not wanting to come out. Okay. So all of these Scaletrains engines have got like built-in channels into the frame itself, so they can do all their wiring very nice and neatly. So I bet you, if I was a bet man, yep, there it is. So your wires are going to come through the front here. So go ahead and find them. Gently pull them down through, so that way you don't. Because the last thing you want to do is you don't want to break the wires. So, okay, go ahead. You're gonna make a mess of a little bit of the wiring. That's why I would recommend you don't do this unless your engine's out of warranty. Because like I said, I've had this engine for over 4 years, so it's well out of factory warranty. So if anything were to happen, it'd be on my dime. So I figured I'd do my own maintenance. Okay. Now, your next problem is that your motor wires here are nice and snug up against the bottom of this PCB board, even though you got plenty of extra wire here. So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to unscrew the board a little bit. There's 2 screws holding on the main adapter board. Go ahead and gently lift, and you should... looks like we're going to have to take it off the board on this one. I know on the GEs you don't have to remove the whole board, but... We're going to go ahead, gently lift. Yep, see what I'm talking about? Your wires are right there. So go ahead and remove your decoder as well. I normally just gently pull this up, like so. Your decoder helps hold those in. Now you got access to your motor leads, which then now will allow you to access the drivetrain. So you get your typical Scaletrains motor here, which is very reminiscent of an old proto motor. Even same thing with the drive shafts. So next thing you want to do, just like any on any other model, I'm gonna have to try to gently. All right, there they go. Pull these wires out. Pull those off like so. So now what you're gonna want to do is you want to pop off the tower covers here. Just simply go in and pry. What you want to do is when you want to take them off, you want to put your tweezers or screwdriver and gently just pry like that, and they'll pop right off. And now you have access to the worm gear. Go ahead, pull that out, set it off to the side. I got some paper towels up here, so we'll go put those in up there so you guys can see. So now we'll go over here and do the other truck. So like I said, the only thing you want to do is, let's twist this here so you can see. Let's move this one truck. So as you can see, there's the tower right there, tower gear, the tower cover. So you just want to gently pry and pull up until it pops right off. There it goes. All right. And now you can pull gently. The way I do is I normally get my tweezers on the one end, get them in there gently, gently lift, pull the drivetrain out, set them up with the other one, pull that out. Now you can go ahead, put your chassis back together like so. If you want, you can put one screw in so it doesn't split on you and doesn't damage anything else. So let's just tighten that up a little bit, not all the way, but just snug it. Now you can take your chassis and your motor, set it off to the side. Now here we are, the meat and potatoes. I'm going to show you how to do one, and then I'll show you how to do one truck. And then once they're both done, I'll show you how to reassemble the model, and then we'll go from there. So first things first, these Scaletrains, the bottoms here, they're held on by plastic. They're held on by tabs. So there's a tab here, a tab here, and a tab here. So what you want to do is you want to gently pry and push these tabs down out of your way. I'm using a very small flathead screwdriver here. It's going to be a bit of a pain, but what I would recommend is you do the front two tabs, you go on the other side, you do the other two tabs, like so, and this will help it pop off much more easily and smooth. And go ahead and do your last tab. Pry and push, pry and push. And look at that. Your whole bottom plate now will come right out along with the wires. So here, as you can see, this is how Scaletrains does their pickups, wire pickup settings. You got pickups that go along here. The leads are soldered right to those. And those are just held on. They're melted. Basically, they were pins, and then they melted them. So this just melted onto the bottom cover plate. But now you have access to your truck here and no wires. So the next thing you want to do is you're going to want to gently grab the side frames, and they're going to pop out. So there's your one side frame. Go ahead and put them up top here. I'm going to take this and put it up there. So I know it needs to be cleaned. Pull these out. Go ahead and set it up top here in the galley. I'll remove my screwdriver. And here you got your truck. As you can see, you got your wheels here. I've been in this once before. I've painted my wheels. I always do that to any of my older Scaletrains. But this is why it's so important to come in here, because as you can see there's a bunch of black. The oil is turned black on a lot of these bearings, and that black, and when it does that, it makes it harder for your engines to pick up power. So if you're having power pickup issues, there's probably a good chance that this oil has gotten nasty, dirty, grimy, because it just picks up dirt and stuff from your model railroad. But now you got your bare bones truck, and there's two screws. You got a screw here and screw here. But before you even do that, you got to carefully come back here and take off the back of the traction, because they have this little detail part back here that simulates one of the traction motors. So go ahead and remove. You don't have to remove both, but you can. It's just literally, they're literally just pinned together, and there's a little T-slot, and you put them right over that. So now you want to remove your two screws. And the nice thing about Scaletrains is a lot of their engines use different screws for a lot of the different components, so it's hard to mix them up. You pop this open, and look at that. There's your there's your drivetrain. You got metal axles with plastic gears that are just, the metal axles sit in the plastic themselves, so that way you don't have to worry about them cracking over time. So just go ahead and remove all your gears. This grease and stuff still looks pretty good, but you still want to maintain, you don't have to do a complete teardown like this every time. The majority of the time what you can do is what we're going to do with the Dash 9, because I've done a tear down on it recently, and I know I'm having power pickup problems, so I know I just got to clean the axles. But so here you go. Here is your completely disassembled truck of a Scaletrains locomotive. So now what you're going to want to do is you want to use Q-tips and paper towels to go in here, remove all this old grease and oil, everything else. I use that and some 91% isopropyl alcohol, which I got in here. That's another reason why I removed the shell, is because 91% will remove paint on most model trains. So you want to use either 70%, or if you're going to use 91%, be very, very careful and do what I do and just remove the shell. Excuse me, I forgot to turn off my soldering station. So then that way you don't accidentally get that all over your fingers, and then you transfer it to the shell and you get the shell, and then the shell will start, the paint will start peeling off the shell. So, all right, we're going to go in. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to clean up all this oil out of everything, which, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just get in there with Q-tip covered in rubbing alcohol, and you get in there, you remove everything, and then I'll show you how to relubricate, how I relubricate everything, and we will start putting this one. We'll put this one truck back together, and then I'll go ahead and do a complete cleanup, tear down, and clean up on the other truck, and then I'll show you how to reassemble your bottle and put it all back together. Alright, the one important thing when cleaning one of these Scaletrains engines is to make sure that you clean these wheel sets. Because the power gets picked up through the axle here, through the bearing, through the axle. It is very important that you take apart these axles. And the way you do that, they literally just twist apart. Like so. But I will say, do not do this if you do not have an NMRA gauge. If you do not have a gauge, do not take these axles apart. Because without this gauge, you will not be putting your axles back together in the same gauge, and now your engine might cause a bunch of derailment problems every time you try to run it, especially going over switches and through curves. So let me say this again. Do not pull these axles apart if you do not have this gauge. Okay? So I just wanted to make that clear real quick. So that's how I clean these axles, is I take them apart. I'll pop this one off. I'll show you how. Only thing I do is I take my fine set of tweezers here, put it in between the bearing, which is flush. I don't know if you can see that. I put it in between the bearing and the gear. And all what I do is I just gently pry up while holding the wheel in my hand. And that's how I remove the axle. And that's also how I inspect it to make sure it's not cracked or anything. But that's how you remove the main gear from the axle of a Scaletrains locomotive. All their axles are built this way. So, alright, I'm going to clean all these axles up, and then once that's done, I'll show you how to put it all together, put the trucks back together, and it's just the reverse of how we took it out of the frame, and then from there, we'll go on to we'll show you the completed engine, and then we'll move on to the Dash 9. So I'll see you when I'm back, and see you when I'm done with all this. And the whole reason why I removed take apart these axles is because, very simply put it like this. All that right there, that's old lubricant and oil and stuff, and that's what's not causing your engine to pick up power correctly. So, I'll do it again. But, yeah, you can see that's all old oil and stuff, and that's dirt and grime, and that's right there on that axle, that surface where it picks up power. So that's why I take these axles apart and properly clean them. So that way, I know that there's no old oil or anything left inside this, or the bearings, because these are the bearings. So that way, I know these are all clean. For these, I take my paper towel and I literally just put them in like this. Rub them between my fingers like so. Now I'll take a Q-tip, dip it in my isopropyl. I'll dip it in the rubbing alcohol. It's simply just like that. Get in there and get all that old oil out of there. You can see there's a little bit on there, so yeah. Go in there and clean all those up. So that's how I clean up these axles on these Scaletrains engines, so that way I know they're properly cleaned and everything else. So after I showed you that, I'm going to finish tearing apart the rest of these axles, and then we'll get to then we'll be at the relubrication slash putting everything back together phase, reassembly phase. All right, once you got everything cleaned up and everything else, what you want to do is you want to take some light lubricating oil. This is Lebel 108. You essentially just want to put, just the smallest of drops on each of these little. Most of the time I just use the residue that's left over on the needle, but I'm not squeezing, I'm just letting it come out on its own because less is better. So there you go. Do all those. Put those all together like so. Then once you're done with that, I'm going to take the other side of your frame. Put them back together like so. Take your screwdriver and your screws. Put your screws back in. Like so. Now you don't want to over tighten these because you can easily strip these out very easily. If you strip these out, oh, you're in trouble. Because the kind of plastic that this is made out of does not accept glue very well, and you would need some sort of super glue. But alright, still make sure they're all spinning nice and good, which they are. So next what you're going to want to do is you want to put your wheel sets in. And I'll show you what to do after that once I reassemble all the wheel sets and where you want to put lubrication at. Alright, so the next part of this rebuild process is to, what I do is I just roughly, loosely, set the axles in place like so. Take a set of tweezers or screwdriver or whatever and make sure that these bearings, these little slots, you want to make sure they slot in there. Like so. So just go ahead, turn the bearings, make sure they slot in nicely. Like so. Well, the one popped back out. Hold on. This part can be a little bit tedious, so take your time doing this. Make sure you do it right. See, like this one right here. This one's popped back out. So let's just carefully take our time and pop it back into place. Like so. This one also popped out, so let's do this one more time. Alright, so then I don't have the right oil. I would normally use Conducta Lube, which you can get either from Atlas or Bachman, but this will work just fine. Go ahead, put a little bit of oil in there. I don't even squeeze, I just let the oil naturally flow out of the nozzle. Let's go ahead and always put a little bit of oil. Remember, you want to use as little as oil as possible. The less lubricant you use, the better. Now, before we can even put the side frames, don't forget you got to put these traction motor details back on. So go ahead and, well, actually I got to remove this one wheel set. This one piece is too big to put on, but it's just over the, so go ahead and put the traction motor detail back together. Now take your truck, put it back in there, like so. Okay, put this back in like so. Alright, now the next thing I do is I take the side frames and I put them back on. Where's the other side frame? Where did the other side frame go? It's right there. Alright, so I do this. So now, by doing this, you have now locked those axles in, and now they can't pop out, but yet you can still, as you can see, they still move freely. So next, what you want to do is you want to take some grease. You can use some Atlas grease, or this is Lebel 106, and what I do is I just essentially, I put a dab on that, and I just put a dab on each little gear. So you don't want to overdo it, but just a little dab, just like that. And then I take my fingers. See how now you can see that they're all shiny? So they all got plenty of lubricant. That's all what you need. That's all what you need. You do not need very much. That's all what you need to do in order to put lubricant back on the gears. I know a lot of people are like, oh, plastic gears don't need lubricant. If it's creating friction, it doesn't matter if it's plastic on plastic, plastic on metal, metal on metal. If it creates friction, it needs some sort of lubricant. I always put grease on my gears. I don't care what they're made out of. I always put grease. I put light grease though. This is a lighter grease. This is not a real heavy grease. You can even maybe even get away with using heavy gear oil, but I personally use grease. I put oil where there's bearings and other spinning parts, and for gears I use grease. So, all right. Next step is gotta take the cover plate here. We gotta put it on. Now the way these cover plates go on is that the two tabs go towards the back. So you want to go ahead, thread the wires up between the side frames, like so. Alright, then what you're going to want to do is get the cover plates lined up, like so, but you don't want to... Did I accidentally? I did. Okay. Yeah, make sure you put the right side of the wires through the right side. So, alright, black over there, red over here, up, making sure not to entangle themselves, which they did, dang it. Okay, come here. Alright, thank you. Okay, now we bring them up like so. This part's pretty easy. You want to line the fingers up with the holes in the trucks and the pin, because there's a hole down here where these pins go in, and they'll go through the side of the chassis of the truck here, up through these holes, through the side frames. So you got to make sure your side frames are nice and squeezed in properly. And then it should just snap back on. That locks your side frames in place. It also now locks your pickup contacts in place as well. Now what you can do is that they've got these little nubs here, you can see, where you put the wires through, and the only thing I do is I just gently, a little bit of coaxing, they'll go right back in to the wire holders there. So all I did was, I'll have to show you on the other truck maybe. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna have to. So what I do is I take the tweezers here, push, and just gently pull these through. So then that way, now the wires are secure. So there we go. This is the rear truck, and the way you know that is because there's that brake chain detail right there. So this is the rear truck. Now when you assemble trucks, you got to make sure you put the right side frames together, because one side has got the brake chain coming off the one cylinder right here, which is will be on the conductor side, and then on the front truck on the conductor side you have the speed recorder cable. So there's that. So once again, I'm going to show you how to do it with the spread one, since you can see it. There's a little nub right here that pokes out in the plastic on the side of the truck. Let's remove that hair real quick. What you want to do is you want to take the wire. What I do is I normally just do this. I'll gently put a little bit of pressure with the tip of my tweezers. These are not super sharp, so they will not pierce the coating on the wire. But essentially what you want to do is you want to take it, you want to pull it tight up at the top there, and just gently, ever so gently, coax it back underneath there. Now look at that. And see, I did not poke a hole in the coating or anything, so now that wire is secure. So that way it's now not going to get caught up and touching the wheel here, rubbing against the back side of the wheel. So you just want to do the same thing on the other side. So put that in like so. Get it lined up like so. Just very carefully get it underneath. There you go. Now your trucks are back secured. So now, let's get these back into the frame. Alright, now with the trucks back into place, I've not latched them in because keep in mind, we put this screw back in the frame to help hold the frame back together. So now we gotta just loosen this screw up. So that way, I'm gonna pick it up from the bottom here and set it upright like so. So now we can fold this over. Now you can also see where Scaletrains put their speakers on their engines. They put them right up here in this little spot. So now, as you can see, there's a little spot here. This is where the rear truck wires go for the rear truck of the locomotive. Right, and thread those up and through. All right, get it started. Come on up. Right, come on up. There it is. There it is. Right, up and under this little piece of fabric. Like so. So now you're just going to do the same thing with the black wire. You're going to carefully fold this over. Take it up. I'm going to straighten this out a little bit. Get the soldering iron hot while we're working on this. So go ahead and gently feed that up. Should be popping out the top here. Let's peel this back a little bit because it should be popping out the top. Right. Okay. All right, where's that wire at? There it is. All right, there we go. We got the wires up. So now, after the wires are up, you're going to want to make sure you got some space left down here. Because again, you got to make sure you got room for your drivetrain. So you got to put your worm gear back into place here. So go ahead, after this is complete. Alright, so after that's all done, like so. You want to take your worm gears with your drivetrains here. Now, it doesn't really matter because they're both the same, but this is important. You see the little nub here with a little outcropping? You got to make sure that goes like that against the frame, against the bushing. The bushing goes in, so the part that extrudes out goes inward. So now what you do is you get your other half of your drivetrain here, like so. And the way I do it is I line it up. There's a little plastic bar. There's a little outcropping on this thing. It's almost like an old proto, in a sense. But anyway, so what you do is you then take this. Well, I got to get this black wire on the other side of this bearing. Hold on this worm gear and drivetrain. But anyway, so that's what you do. You put that in. Make sure your bearings are all squared up, like so. And take your light gear oil. Just give the bearings just a taste. And then what I do is I take my grease, because keep in mind this worm gear is clean, so there's no grease on it. So then I do that, give it a couple turns, make sure that grease has got all over that, which it has. So then you take your truck cover, like so, and you take your truck. Make sure the bolster pin is sitting where it needs to be. And the next thing you gotta do is just line it up like so, and then snap. And bada buck, bada boom. Your truck is now reassembled. So I'm now gonna do the same thing on the other side. I'm gonna put the shell all back together, and this engine's done. So there you go. And then we'll look at the completed product. Alright guys, so I got the thing all buttoned back up. So the one thing I did do is I don't have any Cat-On tape, which I did, but electrical tape works just as good. As you can see, I replaced all the tape that we had to take off, so there's some down here, some up here. I even added a piece right here to keep these wires nice and tucked up, and then there's that piece there. So I know I said at the beginning of the video we're also going to look at a GE, but it's essentially the same thing. You tear it down, you do a little bit of you clean it up, and you get it all buttoned back up. So now what we're going to want to do is I'm going to remove the chassis. We're going to grab the shell. I'm going to put the shell upside down like so. Now this is the tricky part. because of these sanding lines, you got to make sure that they don't get caught in between the chassis and the frame. So go ahead and this is where it's really got to be careful. All right, so see, that's what I'm talking about right there. So now, with the shell still somewhat propped up, let's come over to the other side. Make sure they're supposed to go in between the trucks here. See, this is what I'm talking about. You don't want it smushed in between the frame. So make sure your front ones are also the same way. Make sure they're not getting smushed. Now it should slide right in. All right. Look at that. Your locomotive now sits perfectly back down on the frame. Make sure that's frame. So let's just double check. Make sure there's no... okay. Perfect. So the sanding lines in the front of here got put under. So just go in and make sure those are out, like so. Just literally, that's all what I do is I just do that. Okay. Come to the rear here because the rear is going to be the same way. So get whatever tool you use. For me, it's a pair of fine tweezers. Pop that out. I'll come over here to this side. Same thing. Actually, that one's broken off, but that's okay. Alright, now we're going to want to pop them down below the trucks. Okay, make sure these pop down below the trucks here, so that way they're supposed to ride on outside like so. Okay. Should slide back down like that. Okay, so now it's sitting flush. Sanding lines are out of the way. Now, the final step of the whole process, putting the coupler boxes back into place. And the way I do it is, I normally do the front coupler first. So the way I do this is I pick up the engine gently. And what I do is I don't really move the coupler in upside down or not. I move the engine. I tip the engine. So I'll get one box in, grab its screw, put it in, just get it snugged up for now. I'll make sure it's really tight here in a second. Once again, put the coupler in the box, like so. Now, if you're going to replace your Scaletrains knuckle couplers with Katie's, you have to use the whiskers because they are not designed to take the number 5s with the separate spring, because they wanted to make these as realistic as possible, which, fair enough. Alright, so then now once again, take your coupler here, coax it in. Sometimes you might have to move the coupler cut bar out of the way. Now, I'm going to put the engine back upside down. Last screw, put it in. Screw it into place. Just make sure it's nice and tight. And there you go. That, my friends, is how you re-lubricate and maintain a Scaletrains locomotive. Now, you might have to do this rebuild maybe once every couple years, or if you notice the engine's starting to bog down while running or something like that. But most of the time, once you replace the factory lubricants, you're probably good for another at least 4 to 5 years based on what I've done, because I've done this to my Pride and Service Gevos, and they're on year 2 after their rebuild. So I did theirs a little early because I put a lot of miles, I put a lot of hours on them after I got them. So this one, I haven't put too many miles because I don't really use this on the mainline trains. This is for local power, and I'm in an apartment right now. I have a track set up though. See, you have a track set up on the floor, so I do run this every now and then. But anyway, so that is how you maintain a Scaletrains locomotive. How you take one apart, re-lubricate it, and do all that. Now, I will say this. I have not been endorsed by any company. This is not the proper way of doing it. This is my way of how I maintain my locomotives. So this is my guide on how I maintain my models. This is not the guide to maintain all Scaletrains models. It might be different from model to model, but this is what I do to keep my models in running in tip-top shape. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Next video is coming out, hopefully here in the next week or two, is going to be a roster video. I'm going to do a proper roster video of all my engines. So that way, because there has been some new engines added to the collection recently that I have not done reviews on, because it's like 9th or 10th run of a certain engine. So keep an eye out, update for the roster video coming up here soon. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for the next one. Bye, folks.